Hello and welcome to another C3 Stingray video. And if you haven't been watching, I've got this series going. This is part 7 of this 1979 Corvette I bought for $1,500, and I'm rebuilding it. In the past episodes we rebuilt the front end, and now we've moved to the back, and we're going to take this whole rear suspension off, everything off the back. So I should have labeled this worst case scenario of taking your rear suspension off, because everything that could go wrong with this goes wrong. And this usually happens with these cars. It's been sitting around forever. But if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please do, and hit that like button and notification button, and make sure you watch this whole series, which is going to continue until this thing gets back on the road, hopefully this April of this year. And let's just get into the video. First, we're going to take a look at this whole suspension while everything's on here. You can kind of see what kind of shape it's in. It's got surface rust all over it, and it's obviously been sitting for a long time, not moving, and it's you can see the challenges ahead taking this all apart. But first off, I want to get this spare tire out of the way because it's just in my way. And I think it's funny, you see that tire, you can see little nubs on it. It looks like a new tire, but we find out pretty soon that it's not. Now, I had the key for this lock, but this lock wasn't going to budge. I sprayed it and worked it for a little while, and it was not going to come out. So I decided just to take the whole bracket off, the two 9/16 inch bolts that are holding it up. Even with the air impact, these bolts really didn't want to come out of there. I had to work these for a while, get them out, but luckily they didn't break. And there's the first one. Get that second one out. And we can drop this down to see what great shape this tire is in. This is obviously the original tire, never been used, but over the years the weather has cracked it completely. Now, these two bolts here would come out, they unscrew right out of the frame, but these didn't want to budge. So I wasn't going to mess around with it. I just took a cut-off tool and was going to cut them off, get them out of my way, because I'm going to have to replace those if I put it back on, but seriously, I'll probably never put it back on. And now we get this plastic cover with two 1/2 inch bolts holding that on. And there's this leaf spring, which also looks in really terrible shape, but we're going to have to take the bolts out of that. Now there's a castle nut with a cotter pin in it on the bottom, and then you got to pull that bolt out through the top, and you're gonna have to put a jack under there to take the pressure off of it. As you can see, I got the jack off, but I'm not taking the net off because it wasn't coming off, and I'm gonna replace these bolts anyway, so I really don't care. So once again, I got the cutoff tool out to get this thing off. Now I'm using this cutoff tool quite a bit during this whole video, so I'm getting my money's worth out of this one. Actually had this tool for a long time, and it's a more expensive cutoff tool. Is the extended reach cutoff tool, so it comes in kind of handy for stuff like this. Alright, now that we got that off, there's this cover on the bottom of the leaf spring, which I've actually never seen before. They're always gone when I get the car. There's a 1/2 inch, two 1/2 inch bolts holding that on, and that pops right off. And now we're going to take the whole plate off the bottom of the leaf spring and drop it down. There are 5/8 inch bolts, 4 of them, and we're going to put a jack in here so it doesn't fall down and hit me in the head when it comes out. It's kind of heavy. But luckily, these bolts came out really easy. They didn't put up any kind of fight. So that's good, especially in this. I mean, everything else on this car has been putting up a fight all the way through, so it's nice when something actually comes out. Now here's the back of the trailing arm. You can see where we cut that one off, and there's the strut on the bottom going there, and there's the shock, and there's the half shaft. We are going to take all these off. The line going to the caliper is already broke, and there's the other end of the strut and the end of the half shaft. Now some of this stuff doesn't come off very well, you're going to find out, and I leave a lot of stuff attached once I get the trailing arm free. Now there's a 3/4 inch nut on the bottom of the shock, and on top You got a 5/8 inch with an 11/16 nut on that. I was able to get that bolt out of the top and push down, but I could not get that shock off the bottom. It was like stuck on there, so I just left it on there. It didn't really matter. To get a breaker bar to get these bolts loose on the caliper, which are two 5/8 inch bolts, and get those bolts out so we can get that caliper out of the way. Once I broke them loose, I got under there with the impact and took them off with that air impact. Because any chance I can get to use that, if I get it in there, I'm going to use it because it makes life so much easier. Now to get that caliper out of the way, I'm going to take this rotor off. Now, luckily this rotor, the rivets are already drilled out on this one. You know, remember the ones on the front were still they have the rivets in it, so that came off easy. Now we got to remove this clip here on the parking brake cable. You see where that goes through another spot, and then right there it's hooked in. So we got to take this all loose and get it out of the way. I'm taking a pair of vice grips there and grabbing the clip and just yanking it out. For some reason I wrestled with this for a while. It's like a Mickey Mouse clip. It looks like a Mickey Mouse head when you pull it off. You'll see it in a second. And that just holds that cable in place. What I like to do is push this back with a screwdriver and then take some needle nose vice grips and clamp that cable right there. And then it's easier to pull out because once that spring's off there, taking the tension out, you can grab it and pull it out of that little clip. And then you got to do the same in the center. So there's a spot there. We got to push the spring back and it just pulls right out. And then down here on the end, I have to move that little rubber boot thing out of the way. And then just grab a hold of it and keep pulling it till it gets down to where the cable is, and then it'll pop out of that clip. Now we're going to try to take this strut off. Now you need to mark these. If you're going to put these back, you need to mark them. As you can see here, there's the bolts on the strut is a 3/4 inch, and they're marked. You see here a picture of it where they marked it to show where it was before taking it out. That way you can get your alignment close to when you put it back in the same spot. But I'm actually going to replace these with adjustable struts because I really don't want to use the other ones before. I don't like that. I've seen these and I just want to try them out, so I'm not going to be replacing these, so I'm not worried about marking it. But as you can see, I had the impact on it for a long time, and it just broke the bolt. The bolt would not come out. So now I'm taking the air hammer and trying to knock this bolt out. And you can see here in a second it pops out. But like I said, nothing really wants to come out of this car. It's just all. And here I'm trying to break loose the nuts on the U clamps on this side of that half shaft, and they're 9/16, but they do not want to come out either. And I really was afraid I was going to round these off because they do not want to budge and they're hard to get to. So I end up giving up on this one, and I decide to just go do the other side, because right here I thought it was moving and it's actually starting to round off. So I thought, well, I don't want to screw these up, so I'm going to the other side and doing this side. I just need to get them off the trailing arm so I can get the trailing arm out. There's little clamps here. There's like little tabs that got to be pushed down around the bolts that hold the bolts in place, I guess, so they won't move. You have to bend them down. Here's a little better diagram of this. You can see there's little tabs there by the bolts, and you got to bend them down and then pull the bolt out. So I bent those down, and I'm just able to get the impact on these, and they did come out fairly easy. It was actually harder to get in there and bend those pieces down because some of them were broken off and there was just like little nubs left of them, so you had to keep kind of feeling around to get them knocked down. But after working this for a while, I was able to get this part of the half shaft loose. So I'm just going to leave it attached to the differential, and then I'll mess with all that after I take everything down and I have it out from underneath the car where I can access everything easier. And like I said, after I get all this off, I'm still going to have a lot of work to do.
this is the last bolt with this, and as you can see, there goes the half shaft, and it's now loose from the trailing arm. So we also still have that strut on there. Alright, now there's a castle nut here with another cotter pin, and this cotter pin here goes through the shims to help align this. As you can see, there's the shims. They set down, and then that pin goes through all the way through and holds the shims in place down so they can't slide out. Now you need to keep track of these shims so you can kind of figure out what you need to put back when you put the new one back in. The problem with this is, well, first off, I got to take this cotter pin out that holds the shims in place so I can move the shims up and pull them out. At least that's the plan. And actually this cotter pin here is the only thing that came out easy on this trailing arm. Everything else was a complete battle. So you can see I pulled it out a little bit there, and I'm going to put some vice grips on it and work it the rest of the way out. A lot of times those just break off, but this one actually came out. Both sides did. Now I'm back with that extended reach cutoff tool, and I'm cutting the nut off of this because I could not get it to budge. And I'm doing it right on top of the washer it's sitting on. That way, you know, I'm not touching the frame or anything. It's just cutting it off this way is not going to hurt anything. You just get rid of that nut. And really, I don't know if you could do it with, if you do not have an extended reach, you'd have to do it with something else, and I'm not sure what. After I had it cut off, I tried to use the air hammer to knock the bolt out, and guess what? That bolt's not going anywhere. It is like welded in there. And you can see there it's cut off. And there's the shims, and these shims will not move. I mean, I used pry bars, I used screwdrivers, I used anything that could fit in there to try pry up on that, and those dudes will not budge. So I ended up having to take some PB Blaster, and I just soaked them. I mean, I just soaked them really good and left them all night. Next day I came out here with the air hammer going underneath and on top. I was finally able to kind of start making them move back and forth. And then I took an extra crowbar I had, a really heavy, short, heavy-duty crowbar I had, and I ground it down to where it would fit in those holes inside that shims. So it helped me, give me some prying power to try to pry these out. And they are really in there. You can see I've got it worked out some, but they do not want to come out. So back to the air hammer. I was able to get inside the hole now since I got it out, and then I was able to knock them out. As you can see them falling there. Here's a look at with the shims out. You can see the bolt really easily. On the other side, those shims are on there. So if you leave the shims in, you're going to have to cut through those shims and the bolt, where here you just have to cut through the bolt. Now I'm jacking it up as high as it'll go because that'll make it, the other shims on the inside, a little more easily accessible. And I was able to use that crowbar that I rigged up and get inside the hole of those shims and just keep bouncing it on the frame until it pretty much just popped out. You can see them dropping there. You definitely want to mark these, like these are the inside, on the left hand side, inside shims. I'll tape those off and mark them, and then I already marked the ones that are on the left hand outside shims. As you can see here that I took a ratchet strap and strapped that trailing arm up against the frame. I jacked it up as high as it go, and then I ratchet strapped it there. That way I could get that floor jack out of my way, and it makes it so much easier. You got so much more room to work to get those in there and to get the nuts, because I'm using my Sawzall. I actually started out with a battery Sawzall. I could not hack it at all, so I had to get an electric one out. And even with that one, it took me a while to cut through these. But as you can see right there, that side cut, and the whole thing moved. Now I'm going to put that floor jack back under it and take that strap off, and then I can lower it down. What I forgot about was there's still a brake line still connected to this, which I figure out once I start lowering this. I had wrapped that strap all around the brakes there just to get it out of my way. That wasn't necessary, but I was just trying to keep everything out of my way. It's so much easier and to have full access when you're doing that cutting. You want all the room you can get. So I'm dropping it down now, and that's when I discovered that brake line, which I ended up just cutting because I'm gonna have to replace a lot of brake lines. One of the brake lines already broke on this side The other one I was seeing there on the frame looked like it's in pretty bad shape. I'm probably going to have to replace most, if not all, the brake lines on this thing. But there it is, it finally came out. Now I was going to show the other side taking it out, but it was the exact same way. As you can see, here's where I marked them. I wrote inside shims on the right hand side and outside shims. So I know where they go, and when I get my new shims I can replace them. So now we're going to take the differential down that whole assembly. There's those 2 bolts I just pointed to and one up in the front to take the whole thing down. They're all 5/8 inch. This bolt, the one in the front, it's a 5/8 inch on top and then 11/16 on the bottom. I didn't have a deep socket, so I had to use an 18mm on the bottom, but I'm taking that out because I'm going to replace this rubber mount here. And also on the back, there's rubber in those mounts that bolt up, and I'm going to replace those also. They're kind of expensive actually. But I'm putting the floor jack under it. I'm going to take these out and hope they don't break like a lot of the other bolts did. And luckily they came right out really very easily. One of the few things that did come out easily on this rear end. Now I'm going to lower the jack about 1 inch because this thing's still going to stay there because it's still kind of stuck in there with that rubber mounts that are on there. So you just lower it a little bit and then get over there and take a crowbar and try to pry it down, break it loose. See, it broke loose there on that side. Then I go the other side and do the same thing, and then this thing will be ready to be dropped. And there is the entire assembly. I took everything out. Obviously, if you're just needing to take your trailing arms out, you don't need to do all this. But I wanted to remove everything because I'm going to clean it all up and clean up the frame and do all I can do before I put it all back together again.
We're here to ask Chevy owners if deals really do make the difference at Buff Whalen Chevrolet.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode. This was a real pain to get off. I've taken these trailing arms off a lot of times, and I think maybe once or twice I've been able to actually take the nut off and the bolt out and the shims out, and it all just come apart nice and easy. But majority of the time I have to cut them out, and they're usually like this because they've been sitting on the car since 1979. No one's probably ever touched these things, and then the car starts falling apart, whatever. They stick it out in the field, it sits there for 10 years and it gets all rusty. And I had to soak those shims with PV Blaster overnight before I could ever even get them to move. And it's so much easier if you can get those shims out, because otherwise you got to cut through the shims and the bolt. And it's nice to have the shims because you can kind of keep a reference point of what shims you need when you replace those when you put these back on. And that's going to be the next hurdle in this series, is this thing. We got to take these trailing arms apart, and you can tell by looking at them that's not going to be an easy job. But you got to get those apart, rebuild them, and put them back on the car. Still shooting for that goal of April 8th, and want to get it on the road by April 8th. It's going to be a job, because I'm not getting out here enough, and I need to get out here more often and keep working. And we're just going to keep going with this series until this thing's on the road. So, make sure you subscribe to the channel. And if you need any new or used C3, C4, C5 Corvette parts, you can go to my website at c3stingray.com, and I will quit talking, and I will see you on the road.